You meet someone for the first time and feels like you've known them all your life.
Hello, Walter Premier Scene. I'm Claire Bueno as we attend the charity screening of 1,000 Kisses Deep in association with Women's Aid.
Like they've always been a part of you.
An old woman in my building jumped out of her window this morning. She had this photo with her.
What, you're still looking for him, after all he did to you?
Now, I believe that you were attracted to Ludwig, the character of him, as soon as you read the script, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I thought he was a very interesting, intriguing character, you know. I mean, not a hero, you know, very dysfunctional, manipulative, mucked up, complicated human being. You know, obviously a great trumpeter, singer when he was younger, and then things, you know, went in a different direction. And he's, you know, he's one of those people that we all know. I certainly know people like him. I've met, try and avoid them. But yeah, I was kind of understood, you know, where he was. I guess his history and his background, and you know what made him become what he became, and his ability to, you know, to be, you know, he's an opportunist, and he's incredibly clever and emotionally abusive in many respects, but ultimately he's a survivor, you know, and he'll do anything that he has to do in order to survive, you know. So
the interesting thing as well, because he's a jazz musician too, so many jazz musicians are self-destructive. If you think of like Charlie Parker, and exactly. So was that something as well that you wanted to explore?
we all have dark, you know, forces within us, I guess, or we have had over the years, so it's something that I could certainly relate to in some respects. But yeah, reading about Chet Baker, you know, Let's Get Lost, great book about him, and listen to a lot of Chet Baker, Charlie Parker, you know, so many great jazz musicians that have, you know, as you said, been very, very self-destructive. Maybe it's something about the melancholic nature of jazz music. But I thought that it was, there's a lot, you know, for me to relate to, and there's a lot, obviously, that other people, jazz musicians over the years certainly have led that kind of life. I don't know if they're like Ludwig, but, you know, I certainly was inspired by Chet Baker in many respects.
Was it fun for you as an actor to explore learning a musical instrument? And what was that whole process like, and who did you work with?
God, it was tough. Well, I worked with Guy Barker, you know, who's like one of the best trumpeters, you know, we have in this country, and Martin as well. Martin taught me, you know, the trumpet. I used to go and have trumpet lessons, and you know, I started in the States having trumpet lessons, and then in London, and then learning the fingering of all the songs as well, which just took hours. I mean, it's just long, and it takes a long time to get it right. So, you know, practice, I guess, makes kind of, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was, you know, I put a lot of hours in, that's for sure.
And the premise of the story is not necessarily going back and reliving, but almost it's about an accepting. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's about going back and trying to change, you know, things, and trying to see where everything went wrong, and trying to persuade her other self, as it were, to not make the same mistakes that she made, which led to her, you know, where she ended up in her life. So it's about being given a second chance by some unforeseen circumstances, and, you know, chance making, and you know, with the mysterious guy played by David Warner. So, you know, it was kind of cool. I think the story, when I read it, I thought it was really unusual, and I loved doing it. It was great fun.
And also, was it interesting to you from a woman's perspective? We always seem to go for the baddies, so to speak, and we always seem to be attractive to, yeah, exactly, yeah. And did that interest you? That kind of side of the woman's psyche that attracts ladies to, you know, people that aren't so good for them?
I know that, you know, already. I'm aware that is very attractive to certain women. You know, as I said, we've all got a history that we can mine, you know, to use for, you know, as an actor anyway, for what we're doing. But you know, it happens again and again and again. You know, you just look at some girls and you go, "What are you doing with him?" But they're the kind of exciting ones. They live kind of like that on the edge, and so that is very attractive to some people.
Why are my things in the old woman's flat? Personal things.
Time is out of joint. You have to put it back.
Where are we going, Max?
I'm purely here on behalf of Women's Aid. I'm really looking forward to seeing the film.
Well, I remember you, obviously, you played the part of Charlie in
Yes.
Coronation Street,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you were almost in the same position as Dougray this evening as an abuser. So
Yeah.
what was that like for you as an actor, playing that kind of part, really?
Well, that's when I sort of first got in touch with Women's Aid, because I kind of, when I was working on Coronation Street, I was playing Charlie Stubbs, as you say, who was a thoroughly unpleasant piece of work. But when I kind of, the producers had the idea that he might go down that route, I really didn't know anything about it at all. So I kind of, you Google it and Women's Aid's name came up. And I got in touch and they were just fantastic really, and put me in touch with loads and loads of survivors of domestic violence, people who'd been on the receiving end, and of people like Charlie Stubbs, and I talked as well to people who ran groups for perpetrators and sort of helped them kind of come to terms with what it was that they'd done, and we kind of, the route that we went down in Coronation Street was a mixture of sort of quite extreme physical violence, but also a more kind of insidious kind of psychological violence, sort of gradually wearing the character was Shelly down, and that was what was interesting for me about it from an acting point of view, because I was pretty embarrassed that I didn't know that domestic violence could be above and beyond sort of purely physically violent. It can be financial, it can be psychological, it can be emotional, and we ended up going down that route in Coronation Street, and that was pretty much purely down to the research and the help that I got from Women's Aid.
I mean, and for you, I mean, this is a feature film, so there's a certain time scale that that the film's going to be wrapped. But you were having to do this week in, week out. How do you deal with that on a daily basis?
Well, as you say, the schedule on a soap is pretty extreme at the best of times, and great fun. But you're shooting sort of 20 or 30 pages a day often, and which is quite a lot. And so, with something like that, or the best that you can do is to try and do as much research of a storyline up front before it happens, and then take it on a day-by-day basis. But I would often ring Teresa up at Women's Aid and say, and tell her a plot line that might be coming up, and sort of ask for guidance about how my chap might be thinking, how Charlie Stubbs would be thinking in those circumstances. And what we ended up playing with him was that it was about control. And it's not, one of the interesting things about domestic violence is people assume that a lot of the time it's about losing control. And actually with Charlie Stubbs it was quite the opposite. It was about a man trying to exert control on the women with whom he was living. So, and which is a pretty normal state of affairs, really. That happens quite a lot with domestic violence.
And as a person, how do you? There must be a residue at the end of the day after their emotional scenes. How do you offload that and get back to Bill?
Well, that's a really good question. Actually, you do the best that you can, and I just used to eat a lot of shepherd's pie actually and watch sport, because that's possibly listen to a bit of country and western, and but that was kind of how I dealt with it, And what I did do a lot of at the time actually was I was surfing and doing a lot of surfing at the time, and I would literally in the sort of days and weeks that I had off in between storylines, that's what I would do, just go and sit in the sea for sort of, do you know what I mean, and kind of try and wash it out of your hair. So.
And you're continuing work now with Women's Aid. Would you like to share with us a little bit more about the work that they do? And
yeah, the reason why I'm here is just to help raise awareness of the fantastic work that they do on behalf of survivors and I was going to say victims of domestic violence, but people who live with domestic violence and come out the other side. And the one thing I would say is that if anybody thinks that they might be in an abusive relationship, then Women's Aid, you can get them on the web, www.womensaid.org.uk, and they've also got a 24/7 helpline and the National Domestic Violence Helpline. They're really fantastic people and will be extremely understanding and generous with their time, and they've helped thousands of women all over the country to come through what can be a pretty harrowing experience.
Well, the thing is, women at that point are so broken, they have no confidence to go anywhere or do anything.
Well, it can be the case, and certainly the storyline that I was involved with, that's what we played, and that a man, certainly in the position of Charlie Stubbs, was wearing down his girlfriend on pretty much every level, so that there wasn't much of her left as a human being at the end of it. But Women's Aid is just a fantastic organisation in terms of sort of helping you get back together and finding a place to stay, people that you can stay with, people you can talk to, help you get back on your feet, and they're just they come thoroughly recommended by me.
I know who you are. I know everything about you.
I have a feeling that this is just the beginning. You look familiar.